28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds. 19.
18. 17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds. 12.
11.
10 seconds. 9.
8. 7. 6.
6 what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3. 2. 1.
Hi, welcome to Suspects Chatter, where we boldly go into discussing Star Trek. Today we'll be talking about the recent continuation of Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, starting with the first 2 episodes, Asylum and Let the Sleeping Borg Lie. I'm Dan, editor of the website workfactortrack.com.
And my name is Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
Cool. So first question, how does the crew of the Protostar view Starfleet based off of what they've experienced?
Well, it looks like Dahl it sees Starfleet as the folks who have the answer about who he is. And that kind of reminded me a little bit of like Odo, where it's like finally somebody can seek out, like that's very core to who Dahl is, but not so core that he's gonna abstain from doing the right thing. So I think Starfleet to the crew represents a goal that they'd like to reach, and what they're concerned with is working towards that goal.
Cool.
What about you?
I think from the Prodigy episodes that I've watched, they view Starfleet as like what to aim towards, basically, what to aspire towards. In general, I'd say. Why doesn't Murph join dangerous missions?
I asked that question because he's apparently indestructible. That could be very useful on a mission, I would think. Wow, that is a big Diet Coke. That's about the size of Murph, really. But like, I would think if a bomb's about to go off, you just stick that little guy on there, and it would diffuse the situation entirely. You know, throw him on some bad guys and incapacitate them with his jelly body. Like, I'm just spitballing here, but maybe they're just being a little too precious with their crewmate. That's just my opinion.
I think it's still like life, you know, endangering, but I think they care about life, like even if that life is like non-verbal or whatever.
Right, like can they
Absolutely.
want to? Can you definitively know that with the limited communications that it's capable of?
How did the diviner who was left alone on Tars Lamora, half dressed, mentally broken, scrambling in the dirt, end up back in his special suit and his status?
I think that question was a little bit has a very clear perspective that it's a plot contrivance that the diviner is still alive. I think it had to do with, and I kind of see where they're coming from with the sort of like goo that is running through them that apparently saved their life, according to the, the nurse that was one of the nurses that was treating him. Did you notice that doctor in that ship giving lip to Janeway to the extent that he was? That was so awkward. Calling the ensign a suck up for noticing that. Like, he just wanted his flowers more than he wanted to take his patient out of stasis. But yeah, it is bringing it back to the question, I do think it is a little bit of a plot contrivance to just blast goo through a suit and that's what saves him from being in the vacuum of space, just floating around. That seems a little implausible. Did you think so?
Maybe. Is Dal more or less of a risk taker than Janeway? I think he's last.
That exchange when on the second episode where they're about to board the Borg cube, where Janeway's like, wait a minute, this is a really bad idea because it's the Borg and they're really difficult to go toe to toe with. But Dahl's like, what choice do we have? That actually reminded me of how Janeway approaches dangerous situations. Like she takes these grand risks out of necessity, but it's not always worth the reward. And in this episode, it's kind of not, because they find out in the end that the thing in their ship they can't get rid of or destroy. So yeah. So they had the Medusan sort of like, I really like the episode, but the Medusan got almost completely assimilated. And God knows what the consequences of that would have been, because they thought, well, this Borg cube has technology, maybe they know. They just sort of made an educated guess. And that's a kind of risk that Janeway takes a lot on Voyager. I can't really speak to Admiral Janeway because we don't know her that well yet. I would think that she's changed quite a bit over time, but I saw an echo of Janeway and Dahl for sure.
Cool. Do you think that Janeway is more or less a risk taker than Kirk?
I think she kind of had to be.
Oh,
She
right.
didn't have the backup of the Federation. She just had herself trying to get home. So taking risks is sort of necessary. It was just some of the risks that she took. It was like, is this squeeze worth the juice? But I would definitely say Janeway is a much bigger risk taker than Kirk.
That's interesting, in my opinion. Was it the best idea to put a Denobulan in the race known for their very social nature, which I say based on their idea of multiple spices, at the very edge of the Federation by themselves?
I mean, I don't really see a Denobulan being social as like a security risk, or being polyamorous as a security risk. I thought that was I don't think the fact that a Denobulan has multiple wives makes him like vulnerable to attack. I think being alone on a station in general is going to be making you vulnerable to attack. Like if you're just out there completely on your own like that, like do they have patrols? Does he, have contact regularly with the Federation? He's in a relay station, so one would hope. But I would just sticking a guy out there by himself, I think, was the unwise choice, not the fact that it's a Denobulan that may have multiple wives. What do you think?
I don't think it was the best idea to do it.
But like specifically a Denobulan, it feels Denobulanist. That's
Well, no, I think it's not. Like I said, I've mentioned to you before we went live that it reminded me of Discovery season 3. I think in all these instances where there's like a lone person like stationed on an outpost, I don't think it's particularly the best idea.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of like a lighthouse keeper,
Mm-hmm.
except the lighthouse is millions of miles away from, anybody else, which just seems objectively unsafe to begin with. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you volunteer to do that if you're a sociable person? And really, like a relay station, I wouldn't think itself is a security risk, because all it is a relay station. It's not like central, like maybe you could hijack communications or something, but it's not something I would put up high on the list of targets. Mm-hmm. But as the Protostar demonstrated, anything having to do with Starfleet is at risk. So
Speaking of which, was it plausible for Medusan to resist the Borg Collective?
I just thought the moment when the Medusan said resistance is not futile. I just can't imagine that at no other point in the entire time that other beings have interacted with the Borg no one has ever said that or like had that thought. But at the other hand, like it showed that the Medusan was sort of allowing the Borg collective to take them over because they felt guilty about wrongs that they did in the past. So he felt like I'm gonna not, but it's a little confusing because it's like I've done harm. So I guess maybe he's just sort of like surrendered to the fact that he's just a harmful being, and so he might as well join the Borg.
Sorry, who has?
The Zero, yeah. Well, he is sort of like yeah, he felt bad about wiping the memory of.
I thought Zero doesn't have a gender.
I guess I'm making assumptions based on, the voice mistaken, I don't know. But yeah, Zero seemed guilty about past wrongs, and they thought that, well, I might as well let myself get assimilated. And so it makes sort of sense. It makes some sense that they would be able to, de-assimilate because it was their choice to become assimilated in the first place.
I think I disagreed when you said like no one else in history has had the thought of the resistance is not futile. And also I remembered like
no, I'm saying it's implausible that no one else has said that. Like right. Like it shouldn't be such a revelation to a Borg that, that was my point anyway.
Okay. And it reminded me of Phlox resisting the Borg nanoprobes in Regeneration. Will we see Roktak studying more often as she's chosen to become the science officer? What might influence her choice of specialty?
I think clearly her interests are in astrophysics. That's, calculating the velocity of orbit. That's a very astrophysics thing to be preoccupied with. So that would be my guess. My other guess, of course, is geology, but that's a little on the nose, right? What do you think Rotok wants to do?
Well, I see those being viable, but yeah, do you think we'll see her studying more often?
Yeah, she's clearly, I think Starfleet to her symbolizes a goal in that she wants to become a science officer. She, she has this thing ahead of her, and I would absolutely see someone studying, because she was put in a position of having to possibly save everybody and kind of messed up. If it wasn't for that tractor beam, they'd be toast. So clearly some reading is necessary to prevent that from happening again.
I remember in the first episodes when, the scene where they float through space and they're like, we need to make it back to the ship. And I remember that being an intense scene when I watched that episode.
Yeah, there was a scene in The Expanse, I think in the last season, where one of the women jumped from one ship to the other, but she wasn't wearing a suit. That's what the tension came from. And with this, it was sort of somewhat similar, but you're hitting like a moving target, which
Yeah,
is
it
difficult.
sort of reminds me of Data and Nemesis as well.
Right.
How do you think Janeway will react to the crew of the Protostar?
Well, if the diviner has anything to do with it, which I mean, he's already sort of planting seeds of my family and the sort of like sob story that he's beginning to feed. Um, I'm really curious, like how, yeah, it would really depend on if she believes the diviner or not. But you know, Occam's razor, you follow the path of destruction to its source, you're gonna not hold the crew of that source in high favor unless they have a very like they have a pretty big case stacked against them because a relay station is gone, Chakotay is missing, like just those factors alone would sort of lead Janeway to think, even without the diviner's influence, that this crew is up to no good, you know, and they stole the ship. So I don't agree with that terminology because it was the diviner that stole it. They are just using it to escape captivity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was also thinking about like it seems like there's quite a few instances I was recalling. I think it's like the voyage apps is like I think they're called Innocence and Nemesis and stuff when Janeway, like if I remember correctly, like misunderstands um like what an alien race is up to or whatever, and then she meets up with the people on the planet who's had encountered different sides of the species, and she's like, oh, right, okay. How easy will it be for the diviner to manipulate Janeway and the Dauntless crew?
Yeah, I'm that's the thing. I'm really curious because I see Janeway as somebody that's very um someone that doesn't necessarily take everybody at face value
Mm.
and would need to verify what this person's saying before just believing everything. And because of her background in the Delta Quadrant, where it's like you kind of have to investigate things a little bit further in order to verify whether it's beneficial or not, because you don't have the support of the Federation behind you. So I would think that I don't think it would be super easy. It's doable because they only have one person's word to go off of with the diviner. He could literally say anything, and yeah, I mean he manipulated his daughter, who's convinced that he's dead, and even from beyond the grave, she feels guilt, she feels grief, which makes sense for a parent, but like for the longest time, she started off like being compassionate towards Dahl, but ultimately pledged allegiance to her father, even if what he was doing was objectively horrible. So, I think he does have a manipulative streak, but I think Janeway's possibly detached from him enough to view what he's saying more objectively and do a little bit of investigating rather than just believing everything.
Um,
Would you agree
do you
with
have
that? Or
yeah, definitely when you said like he's got a manipulative streak, which we've seen before. Um, did you have thoughts about Admiral Janeway's switch to tea?
yes. Well, it shows that she's aging. It's a signal that she's not the same age and the same person anymore beyond her position. I actually appreciated that beat. I know that some folks that are fans of Voyager might be a little upset that she switched beverages because she nearly destroyed her own ship trying to get energy to make coffee. Because there was coffee in that nebula, but it almost killed her. But you know,
And
I actually like the fact that it signals that she's a little bit older and she has to be, approach life a little differently.
I remember her like rejecting like Neelix's better than coffee substitute. uh, but I
Yeah,
thought,
and like on the one where Threshold, where Paris turns into a lizard,
mhm.
or a, a gecko, whatever, salamander. uh Janeway or Neelix cooks up like a special recipe, special blend
Mhm.
that sort of kicked off his transformation because he's allergic to water, but it was a special blend. That's it was a thought that counted.
I thought it was cool that if she's if she's switching to tea, it sort of makes her character a little bit more like Picard.
But we don't know what kind of tea because Picard specifically drinks Earl
Yeah.
Grey. And I find it really entertaining that like a lot of fans just give him Earl Grey just as a token. Um, do you know if they did the same with Janeway? Like, do they give her coffee all the time, or are they going to switch to tea now?
What do you mean? She drank a lot of
They
coffee and
do they give like the actress who plays Catherine Janeway
Oh, right.
coffee? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I would think so. I don't know. Was the rescue of the Aquathon a callback to Star Trek 4?
I thought so. I thought so. I thought it was a really cute one too. I mean, they have had callbacks to sort of like older Trek in the past. What I really love about the way Prodigy does it is that it's a nod and a wink to those who are aware, but it's not central at all to enjoying the episode whatsoever. Like you don't have to watch Voyage Home to enjoy this episode, but the one with the whales, I mean, a whale rescue, come on, like, they didn't put them in any water and we didn't have Scotty saying there'd be whales here, but, it was close.
It sort of reminded me more of the start of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, with like the two parties and encountering like sea creatures.
I really liked the poachers too. They look to me like sea monkey people, like with the little crowns that they had, and the little like tritons,
Mhm.
very sea monkey.
And maybe even like sort of referencing like Aquaman and stuff in
Oh,
modern.
totally.
I really like the first shot of the 11th episode, Asylum, where it's like like really sunny on the planet, and then the camera is there for a while before it like dips down beneath the waves.
Yeah, it was really it really pulls you into the world because it looks like
Mhm.
you're diving,
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was cool. So thanks very much for joining this discussion, Vanessa, and we hope you, our viewers, have enjoyed it as well. Please remember to like and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you next time on Subspace Chatter. Track you later.